This coming Shabbos, we're going to read two parshas. The two parshas, the two sedras, the two portions of Torah reading, are the parsha of what is known as Matos, and Maseh. Matos and Maseh. If we translate it simply, Matot are the tribes, Maseh are the journeys. So Matos and Maseh is the tribes and the journeys. When we drill down a little bit though, and we look at the meanings of the words, it takes on a completely different meaning and a completely different message. But let's preface that by saying that these two parshiyot, these two portions, are not always read together. They're very often separate parshas. Now, the idea of parshas being read separate or together comes from the way that the calendar is set up. So if we think about the setup of the calendar and the way that the parshas are designated, there are 53 parshas, 53 sedras in the Torah. 53. They've worked out, they calculated when they made all the parshas into the segments that they did. It says here that somebody has come into the waiting room. Let's go there. So somebody else is joining us. Let's have a look here. Okay, seems like everybody is in. Okay, so all the parshas in the Torah add up to 53. If you and I think about, well, how does that all work with a year where, there could be 54 weeks in a year or whatever numbers, 52, it's worked out in such a way that there will never be a need for more than 53 parshas, but sometimes there's a need for less. A parsha of the Torah is only read on a Shabbos that doesn't coincide, for instance, with a Yom Tov. So if ever there is a Yom Tov that occurs on a Shabbos, we read a Yom Tov Torah reading, and the parsha gets postponed till the following week. Now that would apply even to Chol HaMoed, the middle of Pesach, the middle of Sukkot. So we're always cutting out a few Shabboses in the year, and then what happens, and this is not something that we have to work out every time, and because it's been done kind of as far as the eye can see or as far as the calendar will go, the cleverer people than us have worked out how these parshas then are coupled together. And there are certain parshas in the Torah that can be doubled. So you get Matos Maseh is one of the famous ones that probably more often than not goes together. Matos Maseh, these two parshas are linked by the fact that they are often read together. And that happens this Shabbos, where we read these two parshas together. The unique thing about them is that whether they are read separately or they are read together, they are always read in this period of time known as the 3 weeks. And it's going to be on this Shabbos that we're going to bless the new month of Av, or Menachem Av as it's classically called. And Av, Menachem Av, is going to begin next week, Wednesday, when we're going to start what is known as the 9 days, the 9 saddest days in the Jewish calendar leading up to Tisha B'Av. So, a few questions. Matos and Maseh, what messages do they give us? Secondly, what's the link between them? Because clearly, the fact that they can be joined together means that somehow there's a link between them. Not all parshas in Torah can be linked together. And thirdly, what's the message of these particular parshas and their link together for this period of time the period of sadness, a period of the destruction of the Batei Migdash, of the temples, the period of mourning, of sadness, the 9 days, 3 weeks, etc. What is the link between all of this? So perhaps let's begin by thinking about or talking about the names of the parshas. What are they called? Not necessarily what are they all about, but what are they called? Because it should also be patently obvious that when a name is given to a parsha, that the name reflects what the parsha is really all about. It may have a whole list of different things that it contains, but actually, what does the name depict? What is the name really all about? So, if I were to ask you, and you would be able to be unmuted and you could answer me, what would be the name in Hebrew for a tribe? A tribe of Israel is usually referred to as a shevet. A shevet. We talk about the 12 shvatim. A shevet. Shevet is a tribe. Here, Torah uses an unusually different word where it talks about the tribes of Israel, and it's specifically mentioning the heads of the tribes of Israel, and it calls them matot. So what's the difference between a shevet and a mateh? Shvatim and matot. Now, fascinatingly, they're very closely related, those two words, obviously. They both refer to tribes, but they've got a very, very big difference in their meaning. The word shevet literally means a branch. You know, when a tree has a branch that's leaning out from the tree, so it's joined to the trunk of the tree, and it itself is leaning out and it has its leaves on it or the fruit that it bears and so on, we would call that branch a shevet. If we take the word mateh, mateh is closely related to a branch, but mateh is rather a stick or a rod. Now you and I know that the stick came from the tree, it came from the branch. But when we refer to a stick or a rod, remarkably, there are a number of big differences between a rod, a stick, and a branch. And some of them are obvious, and some of them maybe are not so obvious. The first obvious one is usually when we refer to a stick or a rod. So I want you to imagine a broomstick. You got a broomstick. So let's think about some differences between the broomstick and the branch of the tree that you maybe can look at outside your window. The branch of the tree, number one, is attached to the tree. This broomstick came from the tree, but it's no longer attached. Number two, if the wind is blowing, as it was blowing wind the other night, making it nice and cold, whenever there's a cold front, I don't know, there are a few things that happen, and one of the humorous things living in South Africa is, you know, you really have problems when you wake up in the morning because your pool is full of leaves, you know, and we've got to then think about, and I don't know about you, but you know, when you put your hands in to try and clean the leaves out of the pool, it's you know, you can catch a fever just by doing that. It's really, really cold. You know, these are some of the big problems we live with in South Africa. You got to clean the pool, you know. Yeah. But you have your pool full of leaves, and the leaves in the pool also are a reflection of where they came from. And if you were to look out and you were to see the wind blowing, you would see that the wind blows the branches, and the branches usually are quite supple. They move. They are soft, or softer than a rod or a stick that is cut off. So pretty obvious. Once the stick has been cut off from the branch, once it becomes a mateh, so the mateh is the branch. I don't know why I'm getting a feedback here of somebody. Somebody was retzach. Let's just see here. Participants. Mute all. Let's try mute everybody. Let's see. Somebody was unmuted. I don't know. This is new things of lockdown, of Zooms. There are times when you're muted. There are times when you're unmuted. I don't know. It's like, and they give the controller here more power. You know, I can keep a whole audience quiet with one press of a button. It's amazing. You know, let's go back. You've got here the the idea of a branch compared to a stick. The sticks are dry. They're not pliable. They don't move much. They are not supple. And you and I know, hopefully from our studies of Biology 101, that the branch itself has like a sap inside that gives it its life force, that makes it supple. And in that way, it can still be productive. And the same thing, it's pliable, it moves, it's attached. There are so many things that are different between a branch and a stick or a rod. Take that broomstick, it's dry. It's not pliable. If you're going to bend it too far and too harshly, it's going to crack. It's going to break. It's not movable. It doesn't. If you stood it up in the wind, it would fall over maybe, but it wouldn't be pliable. It wouldn't waver. So there are certain things about sticks that branches don't have, and there's certain things about branches that sticks don't have. Why here does the Torah choose to call the tribes sticks rather than branches? Our sages point out that there is a huge difference. People coming and going. Sorry about this. Just let's see. Okay. There are strange things, or there are very interesting things that our sages point out when it comes to why the word matot is used here. Why are we talking about matot? Why are we talking about sticks when we're referring to the tribes? And they point out that actually what we're speaking about here is a manifestation of Golus, a manifestation of exile. When we think about what stage we are at when it comes to the Jewish people at this stage, we're talking about the tribes, and this was after the sin of the golden calf, and it was after the time of the giving of the Torah. And Moshe Rabbeinu, or the Torah, was giving us a very, very deep and profound and important lesson, that there were going to be times when we are totally and absolutely connected to the tree. There are going to be times when we feel and we know that there's that absolute connection, where we are like branches, where the tribes are connected in a deep and profound and proper fashion, connected at our core, connected in our souls, connected as we were in times gone by. For instance, when we stood at Mount Sinai, there was a deep and profound connection, and at that stage, we were branches. There are going to be times, though, throughout Jewish history, when we are slightly disconnected at the core, and then we're going to be like sticks. We're going to be, we know where we came from. We know that we're made of that, we're cut from the same, we're hewn from the same wood, we're cut from the same cloth. We know where we came from. But the connection there has faltered. It's not as powerful as it was before. And there is therefore a suppleness and a softness and an ability to actually move with the wind that has been taken away from us in a way. So this is when we take a look at this concept of sticks or of rods, and now think of them in terms of this period of time that we're in. We're in a period of time called the 3 weeks, coming close to the 9 days. And at this time, we're talking about dry sticks. And that perhaps the Jewish people have become dry sticks. We haven't had our Beit HaMikdash for a long time. You know, the people used to go to the temple. They would become infused. I mean, you think about it, they would, you know, we're talking here about a time when there's a pandemic. There were remedies in the Beit HaMikdash in the temple that defy logic, that were completely spiritual, that could cure us of all sorts of maladies. People had tsaras, they had a terrible ailment. They went there with a couple of fail swoops. The Kohanim could cure them from these illnesses. They talk about the ketoret, the incense that was burnt in the Beit HaMikdash. One of the things, amazingly, that it says about the ketoret was it was able to get rid of disease. It was able to get rid of epidemics. So they burnt this incense. So you're going to ask me, where do we get some of this stuff? Unfortunately, we don't know how to make it properly. But if we could burn incense, we could get rid of illness. We could get rid of pandemics. We could get rid of coronaviruses. Unfortunately, we're not empowered to do that. But therein lies the recipe that at times gone by, times of the Beis HaMikdash, we were deeply, deeply connected, in such a connection that we had this all flowing through our veins. And when it flowed through our veins from a spiritual point of view, we were connected and we were supple. And I don't know if you can imagine, but you know, when a tree is supple and it's soft, it's not only pliable, but it's also very, very difficult to break. You can't easily break a branch off a living tree. As soon as the tree dies and there's no more life force within it, to go over and just snap a twig of a tree is simple, it's easy. So the strength that we got in a spiritual realm was tremendous when we were shvatim, when we were tribes or branches connected to the tree. Now that we are taken on this journey of being so much removed from it, as we have been for the last couple of thousand years in this diaspora, while we're in that environment, we have become like sticks. But let's revisit the image again. And let's think about the fact of the matter is that there are two ways to look at sticks. There are two ways to look at this dry and hard and perhaps unpliable material. Let's use this kind of a thought or this kind of analogy. Sometimes, if you were to think of describing a person as being tough, let's use an expression that we commonly use. She's a tough woman. He's a tough man. Is that always a knock, or can it sometimes be a compliment? There are two ways to look at it. We usually use it, you know, that's a tough person. We can't get along with them. They are very uncompromising. They are, you know, they like, I've got a tough boss. He shouts at me all the time. You know, that sort of image of toughness. But on the other hand, when a person is tough, it's sometimes a very good thing. You need tough leadership in order to lead you on the right path. You need yourself to be strong and unpliable when it comes to, for instance, doing the right thing, keeping to our Torah and mitzvahs. We have so many winds of change that blow across us at all times, and particularly at a time like this. And this calls for mental strength, and it calls for physical and spiritual toughness. We need to be strong. We need to be tough. And we need to be unpliable. And so the message, perhaps, that was being given to the Jewish people, if we're going to use this idea of sticks or rods as being the idea of the shvatim, of the tribes going into Golus, or the behavior in Golus, the behavior in exile, these things are not always terrible. On the contrary, what has happened is, unfortunately, sadly, tragically in many instances, the diaspora has made us tough. It's made us, we've often spoken about, we're a stiff-necked people. The idea of being a stiff-necked people is sometimes regarded as a negative, but sometimes it's very positive. To be tough, to be stiff-necked, to say, you know what, no matter what you do, I'm not going to change. No matter what you throw at me, I'm not going to convert, God forbid, out of Judaism. No matter what you say to me, I'm not going to change my Torah ways. I'm going to follow all of those things. I'm going to be strong and committed and tough. I'm unpliable. I may have suffered a little bit by not having the juice of the Beit HaMikdash flowing through me, because I've been disconnected in a spiritual sense, and we hope and pray that we get that back soon. But I'm not a pushover, and I'm not easily broken, and I'm not pliable in the negative sense, whereby I can be made to do anything. I'm not going to give up on my Torah. I'm not going to give up on my Yiddishkeit. I am going to be strong. I'm going to be tough. I may be seen to be disconnected, but I'm not disconnected at all. And this stick here is going to stand up to any wind and any storm and any atmosphere of negativity that's created around us. We're going to be tough. Let's think about the second parsha. The second parsha is called Maseh. Maseh means journeys. Journeys. The Jewish people get out of Egypt, and they take 42 journeys until they arrive in Israel. Now, don't get me wrong, they weren't traveling every day, but they did make 42 journeys and 42 stops along the way before they got to Israel. And yes, it was 40 years later. There were periods of time where they spent a long, long time in certain places, and a lot of the journeys happened before we got even to Mount Sinai, but there were 42 journeys along the way. And these we mirror and we say these were the journeys of life. But really, if we think about it, it was the journeys of the Jewish people getting out of Golus. Now, one of the things here as well, if we want to reflect a little bit on the images of what we talk about when we talk about the Jewish people in the desert, one of the things that I think has been misconstrued or mistranslated has been that we talk about the Jewish people wandering in the desert. You've heard that expression, right? The Jews wandered in the desert for 40 years. Torah doesn't say that the Jews wandered in the desert. It says they journeyed. You're going to ask the question, what's the difference between wandering and a journey? What's the difference? Well, I think that we can safely say that the difference is the purpose. The idea of wandering is that you're kind of draying around. You're moving, but you're going nowhere. You're wandering a little bit here and a little bit there, and I'll move to the left and I'll move to the right and I'll walk in this direction, I'll walk back, and maybe I'll go round and round in circles. In fact, we do have record, by the way, even early on, when we left Mitzrayim, before we even got to the Yam Suf, before we crossed the Red Sea, we went around in a circle. It was part of not the game plan, but it was part of the plan to confuse the Egyptians. It was actually what prompted them to come after us for the first time, the Mefarshim tell us, because we went, and even the record, by the way, of going into the Red Sea, it seems that we went in and came out on the same side. So that gave the Egyptians initially the idea, before we got to the Red Sea, that we were wandering, we were lost, we were draying. We went there, we went back, we were coming back, we were heading in the wrong direction. So they said, okay, the Jews were never great navigators. It's probably the best evidence of the fact, that they try and claim that Christopher Columbus was actually Jewish and that he left Spain on the day of the Spanish Inquisition, or the day after, or the day before, right at the time of and they say, Christopher, say, your first question is, how can a guy like the name Christopher be a Yid? And Columbus wasn't a Jewish name. I don't know about in your family, but in my family, I don't think the name Christopher was ever used for a Jewish boy. So it could have been a pseudonym, it could have been whatever. They come up with refutations against it, and they say, no, he wasn't a Jew, but he may have been sponsored by Jews, which is possibly more likely to go off and to find a path to the east, although they went in the opposite direction, but to try and see if they could connect with India on the other side. It was one idea, like the same way as, that Van Riebeeck came to the Cape, also seeking for the, what was it called, the Dutch East India Company, to try and find a route around Africa. And that's why they landed in the first place in the Cape. Here, Columbus maybe was setting off in that direction. They do, by the way, say that if Columbus wasn't Jewish, there's a thought that his main navigator was Jewish. So I don't know if you know, but Jews, although the Egyptians didn't think so, they thought we didn't know how to navigate our way out of Egypt. Jews were probably, at times gone by, quite gifted navigators. And why? Because Torah taught us certain things about navigation to do with the sun and the moon and the stars and so on. We're not so badly off, but be that as it may, in the desert, where we just draying around, where we were walking in different directions, Torah wants to record here that we weren't. These were maseh. These were journeys. We were going on a journey. When you go on a journey, the difference between a journey and the wandering, I think, is that when you go on a journey, you know where you're going, you know where you came from, and you have a goal in mind. You're journeying to a certain place to accomplish something. Each one of the journeys of the Jewish people in the desert, and each one of the journeys of the Jewish people since the desert, right up until today, has been filled with purpose. There's a meaning to it. We're going somewhere. We're on our way somewhere. We're not draying. We're not wandering. We're not moving around in circles. We're not going backwards. We're going forwards. We're journeying. Some of the journeys have been uncomfortable. Some of the journeys have been difficult. Some of the journeys have been punishing. Some of the journeys have cost us lives, God forbid. And some of the journeys have hurt us physically and spiritually. But we've been on a journey, and the journey has been, or the journeys have been, that we've got a purpose. And so the second parsha, Parshas Maseh, is perhaps coming fundamentally to teach us that although we may think we are going nowhere slowly, although we may think we are actually achieving nothing, as long as we are within the ambit of what Torah wants from us, what our Yiddishkeit wants from us, what our mitzvahs want from us, we are in and on a journey. We're going on a journey to try and reach somewhere, to try and achieve something. We are on a journey to try and see to it that we can do what is, just 1 second, somebody else in the waiting room. Hold on a second. People joining a little bit late here. Let's just go here. There we go. Okay. So the journeys, we're on a journey, and being on a journey, we have a mission, we have a focus, we know where we're going, and we know why we're going, and we know why we're going in that direction. And we're moving in the direction of where our Torah is telling us to go. And as long as we're doing that, we're on a journey rather than being wanderers, rather than being moving in the wrong direction or in different directions, not in the right direction. We are on a journey. How does this actually couple together, and how do these parshas come together, and what is the message of them when they come together on this Shabbos in the middle of these 3 weeks? And perhaps more importantly, what does it all mean for us when it comes together at a time when there's a pandemic, when we seem to be kind of disconnected in some ways from just about everything, from our social life and our shul life and so on. There's a bit of a disconnect, but at the same time, what is the message of these parshas in this difficult time that we're going through, and particularly at the time of the 3 weeks? And perhaps to suggest that the message is coupled together and it is one and the same thing. And that is, if we become matot, if we become, and we have become sticks that somehow have become disconnected, there can be a great value in it, because we can have learned from all the experiences that we've been on and that we've been through of how to be strong, how to be tough. You know, there's not much that the world can throw at the Jewish people that we haven't suffered with before. It's a terrible thought, but we've had so much thrown at us over these thousands of years. We've suffered, we've had holocausts, we've had pogroms, we've had, you know, we were always on the wrong side and always got the clap, but it's made us tough. If you think about it, why have Jews and Judaism, why has it all survived right up until today? We should have been long gone and done and dusted, if not decades ago, centuries ago. But the Jews are still here to tell the tale, and all the others have fallen by the wayside. So, matot, mate, is not always a bad thing. We've become strengthened, we've become strong, we're unpliable and unbendable. And we can have that guts to stick up for and to stand for the things that are important for our Yiddishkeit, our Torah, and our mitzvahs, and we can do it in a positive and a wonderful way. At a time like this, it calls for more resilience. It calls for more strength. It means that, and look at, it's quite amazing how within a very, very short while, how adaptable we actually are, that people have managed to communicate, that people have managed to get the message out there. I stand corrected, but I may be wrong. But while all of this has happened, I think that there are more people learning Torah now than ever before. Where before it was difficult to go, and it was cold, and it was this and it was that, whatever. More people, it's more available. I don't know about you, but certainly in my household, people are on Zoom shiurim all the time. We're tuning it. It's like we're spoiled for choice at the moment. There's so much that's going on. There's so much that one can do, and in all communities and all around the world. And the amazing thing of modern technology is you can be sitting here and listening to a live speaker across the world, and he didn't have to travel anywhere, and you didn't have to travel anywhere. You can bring it right into your living room or your bedroom or whatever, and you can listen to it all. It's quite incredible. And we've made and adapted through the resilience of it. Instead of saying, you know what, oh, how terrible, we've found ways around a lot of things. Yes, we haven't found a way around saying Kaddish with a minyan, and we haven't found a way around embracing somebody physically from afar, and we haven't found a way around employing all our five senses in our relationships over this kind of a mechanism. Agreed, there are great limitations, but we become adaptable in the areas that we need to be adapted to without giving up one iota of the things that we need to be sticks about, that we need to be strong about, that we need to be tough about. We can still keep to all of those things, and we can do them well and perfectly. But what is the key to making sure that that stays that way and that is all accomplished? We need to be on a journey, and we need to remember that we're on a journey. We're going somewhere. We're not stuck. We're not draying around. We're not wandering. We're not floundering. We're not lost in the desert. We are going somewhere. We have an agenda, and that agenda has to be our Torah and our mitzvahs, and it has to be followed, and it has to be taken with. And we know we've got the plan, we've got the map. We know where we came from. We know what we're missing, and we know where we're going, and we're headed in that direction. And we can turn each and every day, and perhaps even each and every hour of each and every day, each and every moment of every day, we can turn it all into a journey. And we can look at it as being on the one hand, we could look at it negatively and we could say, I'm lost and I'm draying and I'm going around in circles and I'm getting nowhere. Or we can say, I'm on a journey. This is part of the journey. I don't know what I needed to learn from the lockdown and from the pandemic and from this isolation, but I've actually learned quite a lot because I'm on a journey. I need to take the things that I can ingest and imbibe and hear and so on, and make them part of my arsenal and part of my strength in going forward. Make them harden me into the tough, uncompromising spiritual Jew that I need to be. But at the same time, to understand that there are times when I need to be soft and pliable and so on for the interpersonal relationships, and to be a little bit more tolerant of the fact that, people may be a little bit more needy and they may need a little bit more help and all of that sort of stuff. But as long as I see it all, as long as I know that it's a journey. So I need the toughness. I need to be the mateh. But at the same time, I need to know that I'm on a journey. And our journey is not yet over. Our journey is still ongoing. We are still travelers. There's a famous statement that was once made. It's often been something that I think we've all sort of marveled at in the past. I suppose more of us will do this in the future. And that's, I don't know if you had the same thoughts about people who would always go away in a caravan on a holiday. I could think of nothing worse than spending 2 or 3 weeks in the caravan. But there's a lot of people who love it. You go caravanning, they love it. It's fantastic, a little bit of camping here, there, whatever. You think about it. You come from Eichweiss, a northern suburbs home in Johannesburg. You've got all your luxuries and all your creature comforts. You're going to stay in a little box for a week or 2 weeks or whatever in a caravan. And you're sitting there Eichweiss at night with cooking over your open fire and having to walk to a bathroom 100 meters away in a caravan park or whatever. And people say, oh, it's marvelous, it's wonderful. You speak to caravanners, they love it. I don't know about you, me, I don't know, not my style or not my idea of a wonderful holiday. I don't think I would be able to do it. But they once came in a similar vein to a great sage, and they saw that he was living mamish like a pauper. He had a broken chair and a broken table and living really, and some of his chevra, some of his friends wanted to fix up his home, and they wanted to give him beautiful dining room suite and a lounge suite and beautiful beds and whatever, and dress it up. And they even said, like he said, it wasn't a financial problem actually. They knew that he had a little bit of guilt, and they were prepared to put it in and whatever. He said, no, I don't want it. He said, over here we're on a journey. I'm moving. I'm not here to stay. I'm here on a journey. When I get to Eretz Yisrael, when I get to Israel one day with the coming of Mashiach, then I'll sink roots properly. Here I'm on a journey. I want to travel light. I want to be movable. I want to be able to get up and run at a moment's notice. I don't want to have all of these things holding me back. Can you imagine you have a beautiful house and you don't want to leave it? Mashiach comes and they say, well, now you've got to get on the first plane out of here. That's if you can get a ticket and if you can be repatriated. I mean, we've got all sorts of things that we've got to confront at the moment. So you can, you want to be able to do that. We're traveling light, and traveling light through this life is something that our sages always recommended. Yeah, most of us don't know how to do that. I guess we accumulate lots and lots of stuff, the stuff that you needed, the stuff that you didn't need, the stuff that you won't ever use, the stuff that you won't ever need, and so on. I don't know about you. I've still got wedding presents, and we got married 36 years ago. I still got wedding presents wrapped that we've never used. Then, what did I need them for? The idea of needing stuff and of having stuff, physical stuff, not necessarily part of the greater Jewish agenda. But we can take everything that we have and we can turn it around and make it an addendum to our journey. we can take it with us and make sure that it complies with and it actually enables the journey that we're supposed to be taking going forward. And this is perhaps the message of this time and the message of the time of the 3 weeks. Let's make sure we're strong and strengthen ourselves in everything that needs to be strengthened from a Jewish point of view. Our neshamas, our souls are much stronger than anything physical. We've got strong, strong souls, and they can be like sticks when it comes to the winds of change and the winds of anything that the world throws at us, that our souls can stand up to. We've got that, and we've got that. It's the mateh, it's the matot, it's the sticks and the rods that we are and that we can be. And as long as we're moving forward, as long as we realize that we're on a journey, and as long as we make every day a journey, every day we need to grow. Every day we need to accomplish something more. We cannot allow ourselves to be stuck, either stuck in the past or stuck in the old ways. People keep on talking about, sort of, when will we get back to normal? When will we get back to normal? Who says what we were doing before was normal? What makes that normal? I've got a feeling we're not going to get back to where we were. We need, as Jews, we need to get back to, if it's the abnormal, we need to get back to, or we need to get to what we've been thinking about, and what we've been dreaming about, what we've been talking about for thousands of years, which is where once again, we can accomplish what these journeys were meant to accomplish, and we can become once again shvatim. We can once again become the branches of the tree, of the fountain of spirituality that will emanate from Eretz Yisrael, that will come from Israel, the fountain of spirituality that will come from our Beit HaMikdash, from our temple. And as long as we realize that we're strong, and as long as we remain strong and committed, and as long as we take all of that with us on this journey going forward, then hopefully we'll accomplish it faster than we think, quicker than we think. And please God, very, very soon, be able to see the Beit HaMikdash, the temple, rebuilt, because that's really got to be the focus of this period of time as well. So I want to wish you a great week up ahead, a great Shabbos. Remember that it is Shabbos Mevorachim. We bless the new month of Av, and Rosh Chodesh is next week, Wednesday. So today is the 24th day of Tammuz. So it's coming up for Shabbos Mevorachim. And please God, it will be a Shabbos on which we bless not only the arrival of the 9 days, but please God, the arrival of Mashiach and the arrival of the Beis HaMikdash as well. We're on the journey. What did they say? Nissen used to say, life's a journey, enjoy the ride. This is a journey that we're on. Let's be strong and let's take this journey together. Wish you a good week, and thank you for listening.